Hi everyone, Materim here again with another narrative battle. And this one is going to be a big one for us. It is the Daemons of Chaos versus Bretonnia. And this is Lord Alphonius seeking at last to claim the Pearl of Musalin. It was a great game, so sit back and we'll see where it goes from here. Lord Alphonius Serpine rode into the ogre camp at the head of his house's force. He did his best to show none of the feelings that were churning within him, though he still mourned the loss of his betrothed, Lady Chandra, who had been claimed by the vampire Lord Mounthaven. He was nearly giddy with excitement at being this close to the end of his quest. Soon, the pearl would be in his grasp. With this one act of honor, his family would be restored, and the dukedom of Musalin would be his to rebuild. These visions of glory were swept aside as the mighty ogre tyrant Tok'ron Facecrusher stepped from his yurt and into the path of the Bretonnians. "Hail, Serpine," the ogre called. "Have you finally brought my gold?" Lord Alphonius bristled at the informal greeting, but calmly responded. "We have, Tyrant Facecrusher. As you have requested, your weight in gold." As his men-at-arms revealed the gold in the wagons, Alphonius was pleased to see the look of surprise on the ogre's face. Tok'ron motioned for his guardsmen to begin unloading the gold into his hut. He then stepped forward and handed the Bretonnian lord a map. "My hunters have marked the location of your pearl on this map. You'll find it in the ruin of some chapel in this valley. I don't know why you would trade all of this wealth for a single pearl." "It is a matter of honor, ogre. You would not understand." Tok'ron sneered. "Call it what you will, Serpine, but it's still foolish." And with that, the tyrant gave a mighty bellow and commanded his people to begin breaking camp. "Where are you going?" Lord Serpine asked. "To the south. My scouts report dark elves in the south, and I've never tasted dark elf." Lord Serpine suppressed a shudder and commanded his men to march north towards the valley on the map. 3 days later, Lord Serpine sat upon his warhorse alongside 2 of his scouts. He had chosen to ride ahead with the scouts into the mouth of the valley because he wanted to be the first to see the chapel where the pearl rested. Both the scouts and their mounts were unsettled by the pass, but Lord Alphonius would not let peasant superstition stop him when he was this close. As he entered the valley, his nose was assaulted by the smell of sweat and sex, and a gigantic form appeared before him. Alphonius was no scholar, but even he recognized the form of a keeper of secrets, the greater demons of the god Slaanesh. Her form was both beautiful and terrifying, as were the writhing forms of the nude young women that surrounded her. Despite himself, Alphonius was nearly overcome with a feeling of arousal looking at the creature. "Greetings, Lord Alphonius. I have been waiting a long time for you." "Who are you?" the Bretonnian lord managed to choke out. "I am Malisandra, keeper of secrets and lady of the circle of lust, and of more interest to you, the mistress of this chapel and the keeper of your pearl." Those words snapped Alphonius to attention. "Then I demand its return," he commanded. Malisandra smiled and licked her lips. "My, what a forceful man you are, Alphonius. But I do not give up my treasures. They must be taken." "Then I will take them." "My forces are strong here, Lord Serpine, and you are outnumbered." "It doesn't matter. I shall do whatever it takes to reclaim the Pearl of Musalin." Malisandra smiled. "I respect your passion. Come then, and bring your mighty lance against me, Alphonius. If you succeed and penetrate my defenses, not only will you have your pearl, but my service for a year. I will be yours to command." Alphonius could not help but show his excitement at that prospect, but he quickly regained control of himself. "And if my forces are defeated?" "Well, I have no need for your pearl, so you may have it in that case as well. But if you are defeated, you and your entire house of Serpine must swear themselves into the service of Slaanesh." The 2 peasants gasped, but Alphonius silenced them with a glare. "I am pledged to regain the pearl, and so that is what I must do. I accept your bargain. You will be defeated, and you will serve House Serpine as it rebuilds the great city of Muslin." Malisandra smiled. "Come then, Lord Alphonius. I look forward to what we will accomplish together." Then the demon's form faded away, leaving only her laughter echoing in the valley. Okay, so here is the battlefield where the Bretonnia forces will meet those of Malisandra. Really, the biggest thing to take note of here is that triangle that's in the middle of the board, right next to where those templates are sitting. That is a sorceress portal, and my opponent decided to put it in the middle of the board so that we couldn't ignore it, and it's just going to be obnoxiously spitting out spells the entire game, and ended up being really kind of a pain in the butt across the board. For both of us, frankly. It didn't give a particular advantage to either side, but it does come into a huge come into play a huge part of the game in the midway point. So beyond that, everything else is mysterious water, a forest. I got a hill on my side. He's got one on his. Nothing special. Okay, so with Bretonnia's deployment, obviously he has a group of 5 mounted yeomen that have vanguarded up front there. On the hill, he has a unit of 12 Knights of the Realm with full command and the Banner of Eternal Flame. His front line there is his Lord Alphonius Serpine with the Sword of Swift Slaying, Enchanted Shield, Luckstone, Other Trickster's Shard, and the Virtue of Heroism. And then he has 2 just normally equipped paladins next to there, so I've got a total character wall. And then there is a trebuchet on the hill up there next to them, and a unit of 12 peasant archers with braziers. And so next to that, we have a 9-man unit of Knights Errant with full command in the Errantry banner. Hanging out in the center of them is a Prophetess of the Lady with Dispel Scroll, Talisman of Preservation, and she's a level 4 to the Lure of Beasts. Next to that is a 12-man unit of Knights of the Realm. They have full command and the Standard of Discipline. In front of them is, or rather in that unit as the front rank of them, is his Paladin BSB with the Relic Sword and the Grommel Greathelm, and 2 other normally equipped Paladins. So that's my second character wall I've got to deal with. Then he has 2 Soladins. The first is just a standard normal equipment, but has a Morning Star. The second is standardly equipped, except has the Heartwood Lance, which rerolls failed rolls to wound. Next to that is a pretty sizable unit of 40 men-at-arms with full command in there. There's also a level 2 Damsel of the Lady with the prayer icon, and she's a level 2 Lore of Life. Then there is a unit of 3 Pegasus Knights. All they have is a musician. There's no standard in that, so musician and champion with that. Then over here he has a second trebuchet and another 5-man unit of mounted yeomen protecting his right flank. Okay, so starting on my right flank, you can see right in front of the building there I have 3 Nurgling bases scouted up. That's as close as I could get him. He was spread from board edge to board edge, so there was no good scouting locations. On top of the hill I have a Skull Cannon of Corn. At the bottom of the hill, I have 6 Chaos Furies marked Slaanesh. Okay, then from right to left, I have a unit of 20 Daemonettes of Slaanesh. Hanging out with them is Brya, the Bearer of the Sign, my Battle Standard Bearer, and she had the Greater Gift Soul Eater that lets her heal when she does damage. Next to that is a Soul Grinder marked Nurgle. Behind that is Malisandra, my Keeper of Secrets. She's a level 4 to the Lore of Slaanesh. She has the Exalted Gift, which I defaulted to the Chromatic Tome. And she has the Lesser Gift of Multiple Wounds too. And that's actually going to become a big deal as the game goes on. Up front there, I have a unit of 5 Seekers of Slaanesh with full command that vanguarded to that position. Behind them is 20 Plague Bearers with full command, and Galbus Plague Twin, my Herald of Nurgle, who has the Greater Gift of +2 attacks. Behind them is another unit of 20 Daemonettes of Slaanesh, and with them is Chiron the Tamer, my Herald of Slaanesh, with the lesser gift that defaulted the +1 strength sword and lesser gift of multiple wounds too. Now both Heralds of Slaanesh are giving their units always strikes first, and the Plague Bearer, Galbus Plague Twin, is giving his unit the regen because I didn't realize that my opponent would be taking the Flaming Banner. So that's kind of how they're set up there. And then protecting my left flank here is a unit of 3 Plague Drones of Nurgle, and they have full command. So obviously the Bretonnians are going to take the first turn, or rather to give me the first turn so they can pray. So I get really aggressive here, hoping just to kind of overwhelm them. I run the Nurglings up straight at those yeomen, hoping to kill them and get into the trebuchet. I fly my Furies straight up. Now I know most of you are thinking, hey, they're supposed to be skirmished, but it's a 6-man unit of Furies. We understand that they use the rules for skirmish, but I'm not wasting a different unit mover on them just to make them skirmished. So you see here, I continue my very, very aggressive, perhaps even foolishly aggressive advance. I move up the Daemonettes right in front of the Sorceress Portal so that they can take whatever spell it's going to spit out instead of the Soul Grinder. And you can see I move Malisandra from behind the Soul Grinder over closer to the Plague Bearers. Mainly at this point because the Soul Grinder isn't going to protect her from the trebuchets anyway, so might be able to get a spell off that way. So Plague Bearers move forward to where you see them here. The Plague Drones move to the flank of his chaff unit, and the Daemonettes come down the hill straight for him. I'm hoping to take the Daemonettes and the Plague Drones through that flank and kind of sweep sideways and see how much damage I can do there. And up here in the center, I bring my chaff up and just park them right in front of those 2 Knight Lances. I'm hoping to kind of chap him up, maybe redirect him off in the right way, because with those character walls, I'm going to have an awful hard time dealing with any of these units in the face, so I need to kind of open up his lines, get into some flanks, and if I can do that, I might have a chance to open these knights up. And then Magic was a total wash. I had 11 dice and he shut everything down, so that kind of sucked. However, on shooting, I managed with my Skull Cannon to get a direct hit on his trebuchet on the right side and did 6 wounds to it, so it got smoked. Downside is that kind of makes the Nurglings over here basically useless. They're going to go after this 1 unit of Cav, but nothing else really going on that flank now. And the Soul Grinder has the Phlegm Bombardment attachment, so I land a scattered shot on the Night Realm unit and managed to peel off a single knight off the back of the unit with that. So, start of Bretonnia turn 1, and that Realm Knight unit with his general in it, and unbeknownst to me until this point, the Flaming Banner comes screaming into the front of my Plague Bearers there, and kind of the dumb thing is that he had to scoot the edge of this forest, which turned out to be a venom thicket, so now the whole, as you're looking at it, the whole left side of his Knight Lance and the general all have poison attacks because he didn't fail any of his dangerous terrain, but this is where they're sitting after they close the door, so I'm very unhappy about that. And then he nails both charges with both Soladins into the front of the Soul Grinder. Now, I'm thinking with the way he threw down, because we do play closed list here, I'm thinking with the way he just threw down that one of these guys is the ones with Heroic Killing Blow. So I'm very, very nervous for my Soul Grinder here, because it's really one of the big anvil units I have, and if these 2 Paladins just tear it up, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with my center. And then, because at least turn 1, my opponent cannot fail a charge, Pegasus Knights come screaming into the front of the Daemonettes. Now this is particularly worrisome because during my last Magic phase, the Sorceress Portal spit out Soul Blight on the Daemonettes, so they're Strength 2, Toughness 2 Daemonettes. Yeah, they always strike first, but I'm very worried as to those Pegasus being able to just chew them up and spit them out. Um, no, oh, and you can see here he charges his large Realm Knight Lance into my chaff, as I pretty much expected. And then he moves up his peasant block, I guess, to support the Peg Knights. I'm not entirely sure why he was doing that, but I guess he's got to get him into something, and he might as well start moving him up at this point. And here you just see a better shot of that knight unit with his BSB just tearing into the Seekers. He's holding the errant unit back, I guess, until he clears that, and then he's going to bring them both sweeping forward, I think is the ultimate intention there. So, during shooting, he starts off shooting at the Nurglings, needing 5 to hit with the Yeoman, and actually manages to inflict a wound on one, which was fairly impressive. So, during his phase, either the Portal or him, I don't remember which one, gets Wissom's Wild Form off on the Peg Knights. His other Trebuchet misfired and couldn't shoot this turn. So I was very, very worried, and then he proceeded to absolutely flub every attack he had. He inflicted, as you can see, only 2 wounds on the Daemonettes, and the Daemonettes actually managed to kill one of the Peg Knights, but ultimately what ended up happening was he ended up losing by the fact that he didn't have a banner. So he was looking at like leadership 8, but was just out of the range of the reroll and flubbed it. Then he proceeded to roll 3 1s for his flee distance, and the Daemonettes rolled a 2 and a 1. So I chased him down. I still doesn't look like I moved much of anything, but the Peg Knights died. Here in the center, obviously, he absolutely destroyed the Seekers. However, my champion Seeker, I'm just declaring challenges, hoping he'll say no, and mess up his ward save. That's actually one thing he did in the Pegasus Knights, and what allowed me to do some damage. But he didn't, but my Seeker did do 1 wound to his Paladin before they got 8. And then over here, I declared a charge with Galbus Plague Twin, which may go on record in this battle as being the dumbest thing I did all day. And his Lord Alphonius just absolutely destroyed Galbus, which means no regen for the rest of the army. Not that it mattered, because he has a flaming banner there, and he chewed him up. I think this is after Crumble, but I've only got 8 guys left. It's not going to be long there. So we go into Demon turn 2. I charge the Plague Drones at the Trebuchet and fail. I charge the Daemonettes at his Chaff, and he decides to hold, and I easily get in there. So over here you see I slam the Daemonettes into the front of the Peasants, I slam the Chaos Furies into the flank, and this is after normal movement too, so you can see Malisandra basically ran her little ass over to the side there to get away from all these Knight Lances that are flying around. I gotta say, I absolutely love 10 movement, 20 movement on the march. You could just run anywhere you want to, even without fly. So over here I slam the Nurglings into the front of the Yeoman there. And I didn't mention it last turn, I guess I forgot to take a picture, but the 2 Paladins into the Soul Grinder just absolutely flubbed. I think I inflicted 1 wound on one of the Paladins, but he didn't do anything on me, so it wasn't going anywhere. So in Magic I got Phantasmagoria off on the Peasant unit, and then during shooting, my Skull Cannon tries to take aim at his other Trebuchet, misfires, and blows itself up. So we go into combat, and the Always Strikes First Daemonettes plus their character just absolutely shred the Peasants. Really wasn't expecting otherwise. Now the problem here was I tried to restrain my overrun and failed, so rather than turn around to point at any of the Knight Lance action, I'm running off towards that side of the board, and that just sucked. I didn't need that. So the fight in the center finally went my way. The Soul Grinder did a bunch of wounds. He flubbed some armor. So one of the paladins die and the other one breaks, but I don't catch him. Downside about that is now the Soul Grinder is within like an auto charge from the big Knight Errant unit there with his BSB and multiple paladins. So then the fight with the peasants. The peasants do a few wounds, but they just take a lot of damage in return. He was still steadfast, but then on 3 dice proceeded to roll 2 11s. They broke, both units ran them down. The Furies managed to catch and destroy them and end up at the edge of the board there, and the Daemonettes run just far enough to be out of charge arc, so I was pretty happy there. And the Nurglings beat the Yeomen, but not by very much. Chased them down, and the Nurglings will actually end up right on the edge of the board where you see him taking the Yeomen off right there. So now we go into Bretonnia turn 2, and obviously his Knight Lance slams into the front of my Soul Grinder. The fleeing Paladin manages to rally, which I was kind of hoping he'd keep running away. But he's pretty much facing down Malisandra, and she's going to tear up any single Paladin. And here you see he moves up his Knight Errant unit, I guess so they'll be able to support either fight he needs to. And he turns his bowmen to face the oncoming plague drones that are off to the left of this picture. During Magic this phase, the big thing to note is that he didn't really get much of anything off, but the Sorceress Portal spit out Speed of Light on my Soul Grinder. So it's Weapon Skill 10, Initiative 10, which is definitely going to help. So we go into the first combat. His Trebuchet did actually do something during shooting. His Trebuchet hit Malisandra and inflicted only 2 wounds on her, so he missed out a chance to take her down there. But during combat, this big knight finishes off what few Plague Bearers there are, and reforms in the way here, so he's got a beautiful flank charge right into the side of that Soul Grinder next turn. So we go into Demons turn 3, and I finally succeed the charge into his Trebuchet with the Plague Drones. They're kind of sitting in a weird angle here. They're actually all 3 in a line. Just with the way that hill is, there's no way the models will actually balance there. And rather running the risk of breaking any of those fragile legs, we just put them there and know that if I kill the Trebuchet, I'm going to overrun into the front of the archers. And here I have Malisandra slam into the front of this newly rallied solo paladin. I'm pretty much going to tear him up and then run into the side of the Long Knight unit, and between her and the Soul Grinder, I'm hoping to tear them up pretty good. Then over here on the far end, the Nurglings reform. They're just going to be spending the rest of the game futilely trying to get over to be able to do anything worthwhile. Then I reform my Daemonettes here to face the side of that Night Bus. My only hope is to hit them in the side and hit them hard. And hopefully the Soul Grinder will be able to hold up from them slamming into the side until I can bring help. So, Magic, he just Dispel scrolled my Phantasmagoria on this unit. So I got no shooting, so we go into combat. Malisandra eats that one paladin for breakfast, slams into the side of this unit, and then doesn't do a whole lot. I think she kills a couple of knights, and they might have done a wound to the Soul Grinder, but everybody holds, because he's steadfast, and nothing going on there. So the Plague Drones just eat the Trebuchet and slam into the archers here. Okay, so Bretonnia turn 3, and you do actually see that he's done 4 wounds to the Soul Grinder there. Big unit with Lord Alphonius slams into the side of the Soul Grinder. And I'm pretty much going to write him off, as even if it weren't for the fact that Alphonius has a heroic killing blow, that's just a lot of knight attacks into the side of that Soul Grinder. So I'm not thinking he's long for this world. Over here, the Errants turn around and face the plague drones, and I think he pretty much just wants to be there once I kill those bowmen this turn, so he'll get the charge on him next. So during magic, he gets bubbles, pans, and penetrable pelt off, and gets it on all of his characters over there, and I couldn't stop him. So we go into combat, and obviously the drones crush the bowmen and have to reform as you see them here. So as you can see here, the characters just absolutely demolish my Soul Grinder, and with their pumped up toughness, there's just no way I can touch any of them. On the plus side, Malisandra's still up against normal dudes on that side and manages to kill 2 knights before everything's said and done. And then the large knight unit reforms to face my Daemonettes that are sneaking up behind it. So, top of Demon 4, I slam my Daemonettes into the front of this knight unit, mainly because I don't want them doing the reverse to me next turn. Figured those characters are going to be hard enough to deal with anyway, might as well not give them the benefit from their lances and what have you. And over here I slam the plague drones into the front of this knight errant unit. Pretty sure I can handle that. Even though with them all being cavalry, I don't get stomps, which is, I think, kind of weird. I think bare minimum you should get thunder stomps against cavalry, just because it doesn't make any sense that like the Soul Grinder is so much bigger than anything, but apparently can't step on a horse. And so here I join Malisandra against this unit with the Daemonettes in the flank and the Chaos Furies in the rear. Now I'm thinking I've got enough kickback that I should be able to break them if I get lucky. My big hope is that my opponent will move his BSB into contact with Malisandra by making way, and I'll just eat him, and that'll prevent him from making any of the leadership checks. But he was not that foolish. But on the plus side, we still had enough where I rocked some dice rolls and crushed them. They ran, and I pursued with everything, which the pursuit there did catch and destroy them. And it carried Malisandra into the back of the general's unit and those other 2 units into the side of the knight errants, as you see them right there. So this is after combat, and the main combat here at the bottom, Chiron the Tamer managed to get a lucky blow on Lord Alphonius, and since she has multiple wounds, 2, it was enough to take the last 2 wounds off of him and kill him. Then nothing else touched the other 2 paladins in that side, but Malisandra did enough to just chew up and spit out the whole back rank of those knights. She did not take any further wounds, and the unit actually stuck. They did not break. However, the knight unit at the top just got absolutely demolished. I think there was 1 guy left or something, 2 guys left maybe when they broke, and everything overran and would have slammed into that other fight. And it was at this point that Bretonnia waved the white flag and chose to surrender, because he realized with the rest of my army coming in, he wasn't going to be able to hold up for very much longer in that, and we had another game to take care of that night. So that's where we leave off with the last shot of the I have failed you. I have failed you. Over and over again, Alphonius repeated as he laid underneath his dying steed. The battle was over. His forces scattered. They did not matter to him. His own blood pouring from his mortal wound did not matter to him. The death of his true love, the screams from knights that he called brother, all did not matter. Only his failure for his true lady stuck in his mind. As blood poured from his wounds and covered his eyes, he felt the pain wash away. As his head cleared, he heard a soft voice, a voice he recognized again from his youth, the voice of the woman who saved him from drowning in the river, the voice of his salvation. His lady had not forsaken him. Alphonius, you have not failed me. You have succeeded where other of your kinsmen have not. The pearl is yours to claim. You have won, my child. Arise as the proud man I have known you to be, and take the pearl back home. The people will love you, follow you, and in my name you will seek out those who stand against you. You now have my full blessings to guide you. Go now to your destiny. Alphonius stood up, his wounds gone. He saw the chapel in front of him, still twisted and evil from the demon's taint. He walked past those knights still dying, caring only to reach the chapel and the pearl inside. He threw open the doors and ran towards the statue that once was the Lady of the Lake, now cut and deformed beyond recognition. He placed his hand in hers and took from it the small ring on her finger with the single white pearl upon it. The room spun in front of Alphonius as if a tornado had grabbed him. Within seconds he stood in the middle of the chapel again. This time it was clean. The statue of his lady stood in perfect condition, almost smiling at him. He saw the heraldry of his ancestors proudly hanging from each wall. The chapel again once honored the Lady of the Lake. He placed the ring on his finger and opened the door and looked out upon the battlefield. Not a demon was in sight. All his men were gone. He stood alone. He smiled, looked down at the glowing ring on his hand, and began walking back into his camp and his destiny. All the while, the Keeper of Secrets watched from the distance. Her image shimmered as removing the form she had taken, that of the Lady of the Lake. She had entered his mind and taken Alphonius's soul, and he suspected nothing. Her corruption was complete. He was hers to play with whenever she chose to unleash her new pet upon her enemies, all with a soothing voice and a beautiful smile. All right, so victory for the Demons of Chaos, obviously. This was a great game. I really enjoyed this game. May have been a little hard to convey how back and forth it was in the battle report, but Bretonnians came on strong early and had me nervous. I was backpedaling for a good bit of that, and I know this isn't normally the kind of list he likes playing, because he likes playing with more peasants and some of that stuff, but wow, those character walls are hard to deal with. I think the only thing that let me handle them decently is that on both Malisandra and Chiron the Tamer, I had the multiple wounds too. So if I could squeak a wound through, it ended up turning into 2, which was auto paladin killing, which is about what I needed there. But it really went back and forth. I mean, the Plague Bearers getting basically deleted by Alphonius's unit was rough. It had me backpedaling, definitely. But it was a great, fun match. Definitely a very competitive match. I wasn't sure of my victory. Be honest, I wasn't even sure of my victory until that very last set of charges that ended up opening up the last 2 units. So kudos to my opponent. He played hard, and wow. As far as my list, this is the same demon list for the most part I bring. I think the one thing I did better this time is I used the Chaos Furies much more effectively. I didn't throw them away as chaff like I am inclined to do most times. And they ended up coming in at the end and being the tipping point in that battle against the BSB's unit. I definitely think one of the things that helped, well, 2 of the things that helped me out that were just pure dice, about mid-game, my opponent just had just a raw string of bad leadership rolls, where he was rolling like 11s, even on reroll. Like he'd roll an 11 and then reroll and roll another 11. So that was really messing him up. And then 2, the fact that he only did 2 wounds to Malisandra when he hit her with the trebuchet. He had about a 33% chance of just wiping her off the board, and I think had he done that, the game would have gone considerably different. Because she was really pulling her weight, and more so. She was basically pulling the whole army's weight for that last couple of battles. So. As far as where this takes the narrative, obviously it's going to be very interesting to see what happens to House Serpine now that they are fully under the sway of Malisandra and the forces of Slaanesh. But my Bretonnian opponent has decided that he's going to be shelving them for a little while, at least until the new book comes out, which is rumored to be next month. He's just getting a little frustrated with the lack of choices. So hopefully, when the new book comes out, that they'll change that. It'll make more competitive options. And maybe make his peasants a little better so he doesn't feel so bad fielding them. But all in all, it was a great game, great narrative, and I think the story is definitely going to grow from this point, and I'm going to be excited to see where we take it from here, and I hope you guys are too. So basically, the Bretonnians now are going to go back to rebuild Musalon, and the action within the Grey Mountains is going to shift a little bit, at least till he's ready to bring the Bretonnians back in. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like the video and subscribe below. Anybody who has any questions or comments can feel free to leave them in the comments section below, and I will get to them as soon as possible. Otherwise, I thank you guys for watching the video, and I definitely hope you enjoyed it, and we will catch you next time. Thanks a lot.